The Jacksonville Jaguars have been one of the weirdest teams over the past decade. In 2021, they reached the AFC Championship game, and last year, they went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs in the divisional round. But in the 4 seasons in between, they won 15 games in total.
That's all, folks.
But now, the future is actually bright for the Jaguars, mainly because they have a franchise quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, and a Super Bowl winning head coach, Doug Pederson, leading the way. But the AFC is more stacked than it's really ever been, and are the Jaguars actually good enough to seriously contend with the big dogs? The most important thing to the Jaguars' success going forward is Trevor Lawrence. He was considered a perfect prospect coming out of Clemson, and he was even compared to some of the greatest prospects of all time, like Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning. The Jags drafted Lawrence first overall in the 2021 draft after they got the pick from a terrible 1-15 season. After that, Jacksonville quickly fired head coach Doug Marrone and general manager David Caldwell. Then they made the very odd and horrible decision to pair Trevor Lawrence with head coach Urban Meyer.
Gas pedal, gas pedal, gas.
Now, Meyer had already had some success in Florida. He had already won 2 national championships with the Gators and went on to win another one at Ohio State, but he hadn't coached in 3 years, and he hadn't even coached at the NFL level. Urban Meyer ended up only making it 13 games before being fired after a lot of controversies, not just on the field, but also off the field. And the Jaguars ended up going 3-13 in a very wasted season. Lawrence ended up finishing his rookie season with 3,600 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. And we were basically just left with nothing but questions about Lawrence, who really looked nothing like he did as a freshman at Clemson when he won the national championship and was already getting talked about as a generational talent. Now, the big question that stood was, did the Jaguars just screw up their rebuild, or was it Urban Meyer that screwed up the rookie year of Trevor Lawrence? That was the big question heading into 2022, and then the season didn't start off very well. Jacksonville dropped the season opener at Washington, lost 5 straight one-possession games in the middle of the season, and entered their bye week with a 3-7 record. But in the first game out of the bye, Lawrence beat Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in a 28-27 home win. Lawrence looked good. He threw for 321 yards and 3 touchdowns and had a 2-point conversion to cap off a perfect 2-minute drill to win the game. After losing the next week to the Lions, the Jags turned around and won 4 straight before finishing the season with a matchup against the Titans for the division title. Lawrence didn't play his best game. He had 212 yards and a touchdown, but he protected the ball, and the Jags walked away with a win. Despite a bad rookie season and then a pretty slow start to his sophomore campaign, all of a sudden, Lawrence and the Jags were hosting a wild card playoff game against the Chargers after they went 9-8. Despite a hot end to the regular season, the Jags were cold to start the postseason, like they were bad. Lawrence threw an interception on his first career playoff pass and followed that up with 3 more interceptions in the first half. Now, I haven't seen many more postseason starts uglier. Luckily, Lawrence threw a touchdown with less than a minute left in the half, and that at least gave the Jaguars somewhat of a chance, even though they trailed 27-7 at halftime. Well, like they did in the second half of the regular season, the Jags got hot late. Lawrence threw a touchdown on the first 3 drives of the second half and led a 4-minute drill to set up a game-winning field goal as time expired to complete an insane comeback to win 28-27. In the divisional round at Kansas City, the Jaguars hung tight, but they were too sloppy to steal the game and lost 27-20. They had a chance for the upset, but there were 2 big turnovers. One was a Lawrence interception, and overall, the Chiefs are just a really good team. They obviously went on to win it all. They were always going to be hard to beat, but the Jags put up a good fight. Still, Lawrence got to gain some road playoff experience, and he didn't look too out of place. He threw for 217 yards and a touchdown. Lawrence ended up ending his second season with more than 4,100 yards, 29 total touchdowns, and just 8 interceptions. Now, with already having a franchise quarterback, building up the rest of the roster becomes that much easier easier moving forward, especially in a pretty weak AFC South. The Jaguars very controversially paid up for receivers ahead of last season, but it ended up working out for them, so it's hard to blame them now, even though myself and a lot of people hated the move at the time. They gave Christian Kirk a 4-year, $84 million contract, and he ended up having the best year of his career in 2021. He had 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns, and he silenced a lot of the critics. Zay Jones also finished last season with a career high with 823 yards, and he had 5 touchdowns after signing a 3-year deal with the Jags. Finally, the Jags also added Evan Ingram. He was just on a 1-year, $9 million guaranteed deal. He ended up with a career high of 766 yards and had 4 touchdowns. He had a really good season, and then he got tagged, so he's set to make a little bit more than $11 million with the Jags this year, and then he'll hit free agency again, where he should theoretically get a bag. The Jaguars already have their key pass catchers, so they didn't really need to do much in free agency, and they didn't, but they already do have one big addition for 2023, and that's Calvin Ridley, who was suspended indefinitely ahead of the 2022 season for gambling on NFL games. Ridley also missed the end of the 2021 season after taking time off to focus on his mental health, but in his last full season, Ridley had more than 1,300 yards and scored 9 touchdowns with the Falcons in 2020. This past season, he was traded during the year while he was suspended to the Jaguars. Now, if he can even come close to matching his last full season in Atlanta, the Jaguars are going to have 3 at least decent wide receivers, even if they don't have a true #1 threat. In the backfield, the Jaguars have another big returning former Clemson Tiger and running back Travis Etienne. Etienne missed his entire rookie year after suffering a Liz Frank injury in the preseason, but he did return last year, and he showed why the Jags picked him in the first round, even if it was Urban Meyer who did that. He totaled more than 1,400 yards and scored 5 touchdowns. Now, there's another new face in the backfield. Behind Etienne is 3rd rounder Tank Bigsby out of Auburn. Bigsby should be a pretty good complement to Etienne as just a nice inside runner. As a freshman, Bigsby was named SEC Freshman of the Year. He ended up finishing his college career with more than 2,900 yards and 25 touchdowns on the ground, but he isn't much of a weapon as a wide receiver. Their other major rookie additions are tackle Anton Harrison and tight end Brenton Strange. The tackle spots are pretty much open for new faces in Jacksonville, with Cam Robinson being suspended to start the year after he violated the league's PED policy.
Primals, I'm making this video to apologize.
And Jawan Taylor, he just signed with the Chiefs in the offseason. On the defensive side of the ball, the Jaguars have a pair of young edge rushers in Josh Allen, no, not that Josh Allen, and 2022 #1 overall pick, Trayvon Walker. Now, Allen is on the last year of his rookie contract, and he's coming off of back-to-back seasons with at least 7 sacks. His career high is 10.5, but that was all the way back in his rookie season. He also scored the division-clinching defensive touchdown on a scoop and score against the Titans in the last week of the regular season, so he's already had his big clinching moment. Opposite of Allen is Trayvon Walker. He didn't exactly live up to his top draft spot. It was a very curious decision when the Jags took him 1st overall, and he had just 3.5 sacks with an interception and a forced fumble as a rookie. More than anything, the Jags really need their perimeter edge rushers to kind of take that next step, especially if they want to compete against the best teams in the AFC, because they have some elite quarterbacks, and these guys are going to have to get to them. In the defensive secondary, the Jaguars have a pretty good young playmaker and cornerback Tyson Campbell. His second career season was last year, and the former 2nd-round pick had 3 picks and had 15 passes defended. He was fantastic and is very quickly becoming one of the better corners in the league. At the linebacker level, the Jaguars are led by Foye Oluokun, who played his first 4 years in Atlanta before signing with the Jaguars ahead of last season. He's coming off of back-to-back seasons with at least 180 tackles. After making major strides on the offensive side of the ball last season, the Jaguars need a pretty similar surge on the defensive end this year so they can keep pace with some of the best in the AFC. But, I mean, let's be real here, they don't have any really big names on that side of the ball. After making some noise late last season, the Jaguars have key pieces in place at quarterback, head coach, and they have young playmakers at important defensive positions. They have usually been the bottom feeders of the AFC South, but suddenly the Jaguars are the heavy favorite in 2023, mainly because the Colts and Texans are starting their own rebuild with rookie quarterbacks, and the Titans essentially missed their title window. It's more pressure than the Jags are used to, but Trevor Lawrence has been in the national spotlight for half a decade now, and he's already proven himself. Now it's time for the rest of the team to shine.